Okay, and we're off. Okay, welcome to Mind Shifting Monday with Mitch. Today we're going to be talking about innovation in education, and actually, fear and what prompted this conversation was something that I was talking to my friend Josh about. And today we do have a guest, like it's the first Monday of the month, so we have Josh Chernikoff here for a rousing discussion. Josh, welcome to Mind Shifting Monday with Mitch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm joining you today from Nemacolin, which is a resort about an hour outside of Pittsburgh. I'm with my mom and my sister. We're taking a little bit of time, but they said, go and hang out with Uncle Mitch. We've had enough of you.
Well, and I just learned in the pre-chat that I actually saved you $700 today.
You did.
Right,
And
because you were going to do a wine tasting, and now you can't.
does that mean I owe you
Yeah,
$700?
you bet.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's
or
all right. I
uh,
didn't. I didn't read that fine print.
well, something next time I see you in person, you can buy me a cup of coffee.
Okay,
That's
that's fair. You
pretty
got
much
it.
the same. So this whole conversation that we're about to have, not the one about the wine tasting, uh, the conversation that we're about to have, kind of started because Josh asked me, if I could post some testimonials from people who have read the book or taken classes, and for the most part, as you all know, I'm teaching educators. The classes are primarily for educators, and and I have a lot of recommendations. So, uh, so the one that I said, yeah, Josh, just listen to this one, okay? And I'm going to read it to everybody else, okay? Also, but this is a person, she wrote this on the everybody's supposed to introduce themselves at the beginning of a course, and in the introduction chat, here's how she introduced herself for this latest course. I am a K 12 substitute teacher and mother of two young adults and sophomores in high school. This is my third shifting class of the series. I have been applying the course's strategies and mindfulness thought processes in my daily life, especially at home and at school. All my personal and professional relationships have improved from learning the skill sets taught in the mindfulness courses or mind shifting courses. My confidence to feel comfortable in navigating conflict has increased exponentially. So, Josh, what do you think of that as a testimonial?
It's a wonderful testimonial. I think one thing we should maybe tell people is that while you and I are friends, I also work with you in terms of getting the word out about mind shifting with Mitch, which I believe in. And so that's how this conversation came up. We weren't
Yep.
just, shooting you know what about testimonials. You were talking to me about it because it's relevant to your business. And I believe, and I learned this from Daniel Priestley, who's got a wonderful book called Oversubscribed, that people don't necessarily buy from Mitch or Josh when it comes to the Ed Sales Elevation Experience. People buy from the people who have bought from us.
Right. And
This is
even in my case, where I'm not looking for people to buy anything, even people taking the courses.
correct,
Um,
correct.
or, I guess technically you do have to buy the book, but Amazon makes
Engage,
more than I do. So,
whatever, engage. And so Mitch read that to me, and that's just an unbelievable testimonial. And the fact that she has come back multiple times, that's it. That's what you're looking
that's
for.
exactly what I'm looking for.
And I said, let's share that puppy. Let's get it out there.
Right. It's a beautiful testimony, right? And,
And
as I mentioned to Josh, I have well over 100 incredible testimonials, pretty much like that from educators about the effects that the courses or the books have had on them, on their students, their teaching, even their personal lives. And we also have some great videos of them sharing in class, things that are happening when they're using the mind shifting techniques. But then I had to tell Josh the catch. Every single one of these educators has asked to remain anonymous.
yeah. And to which I said, why? That doesn't make any sense to me.
So as we were talking, it just I kind of remembered back to say one of the sessions, the classes from last week or the week before, and just understand that in these classes we have about 65 or 70 educators in each course, and a lot of it is discussing the different techniques and how they're applying them, and we were having a discussion about mindsets, specifically the mindset of knowing that you can't do something, which is, we have it in our minds, we can't do it. And that pretty much defines that we can't do it, right? So during that discussion, one of the participants brought up fear. Now, they knew they couldn't do something because of the culture of fear throughout their school. And then that was quickly echoed by the other participants. Okay. They expressed the fear that trying new things, fear of repercussions for teaching the way they thought might work best, fear of reprimands, fear of punishments, fear of not following instructions exactly was causing them immense stress.
Mm.
Now, this fear, it's not just isolated to a few teachers, right? It permeates education from the top down. It starts with society, the media, and politics, putting immense pressure on superintendents. Superintendents, their fear of being called out by radicals on either side. Um, Financial fears, fears that of when someone doesn't follow policies that they might even know about, and that might affect the whole school, or an article that appears in a paper, social media. And so when superintendents operate from a place of fear, they impart that fear to their administrators and say principals then focus on the things that they think they can control, especially compliance, teach this way, deal with students that way, do fest, do test prep following these instructions. Keep
Mhm.
everybody in line. And then the administrators impart that fear and pressure onto the teachers and educators. And ultimately the fear gets reflected on the students. And students do the minimal work they have to do in order to just get through the day.
It's really, I don't know, a couple feelings that come to mind are sad,
Yeah,
shitty,
isn't it?
you know, and um, I fear that a superintendent or a principal or a teacher, and I'm sure there's others affected, aren't able to do their job to the best of their ability because they're worried about what might happen.
Right.
And that obviously is the case in how we got here because Mitch brought up the testimonial. I said, let's share it. He said, we can't. I said, why not? He said, because there is fear of people taking a course like this. And so that's a prime example of why wouldn't somebody be, whatever side you fall on, why wouldn't you be proud to let people know that you took this course? Now, you could come out of this course and say it was the greatest thing or is the worst thing, but at least you did it. And for that reason, you may be better, smarter, whatever. It doesn't matter. But you shouldn't be afraid of taking the course.
Right, and that fear then gets transferred to pretty much everything in education. You want to do something new. Oh, I better not do it. You want to try a new project with your kids. Oh, I better not do it. The kids, it's like, oh my gosh, if I don't get a good grade on this test, I might not pass the course. And like, and I think about it, being in a state of conscious fear, that actually is a type of trauma. And when the brain senses danger, it just floods your system with hormones like, well, specifically adrenaline and cortisol, and then that has severe implications for both physical and mental health. But
Mm.
in the school setting, it directly impacts learning. It impacts the kids with their engagement. It impacts motivation of both teachers and kids. And what happens in the moment is that these stress hormones inhibit the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain right here. um, and if that isn't working, we're blocked from access to our creativity, our critical thinking and our resourcefulness. And like, isn't that what we want from the kids, right? Isn't that what we want? Isn't that what the teachers want to do also? And so instead of critical thinking and resourcefulness and executive function, it triggers, a what I would call a limbic or a survival response, fight or flight or freeze, right? And then when you're trapped in these survival responses, you become highly susceptible to cognitive biases. You literally cannot respond to potential triggers from a resourceful mindset. You just react pretty much mindlessly, right? You can't innovate, you can't collaborate, you can't think, you can't take in new information when you're in this type of survival mode.
Hmm. Not to take this way down another path,
Mm.
but have you watched the show Severance?
Uh, no, it's funny. So my wife will not let us watch anything that has more than one episode. So we can watch movies and we can watch a one-time special, but we cannot watch a series or a miniseries. So the answer is no, I have not.
So basically, I shouldn't ask you if you've watched anything in the last like 10 years going forward.
That anything that's a series,
Okay.
you can ask me like, did I see this movie?
Right.
Um, Especially movies that are on DVD, because she
Yeah.
doesn't like streaming either. Um, but yeah, that's what we watch. Is
Well, you,
we go to the library, we get a DVD, we bring it home, and we watch it on an old-fashioned DVD player.
okay. Well, if you could,
And I'm afraid to change that.
yeah, you live in fear. I
I live
believe
in
it.
fear.
Well, if you get a chance, look at the premise of this show, Severance, where essentially it's a procedure that the characters have that separates their personal life
Hmm.
from their professional life. When you're at work, you only know this work life, and you basically live in fear, but you also don't because you don't know any better. And then you've got your life up here where you don't know what goes on at your work.
Really?
And it
Wow.
almost feels like that's probably what people who are instilling fear in principals and superintendents and teachers are trying to create, which might just be, here's how you teach it and you stay on this path
Hmm.
and don't teach it any other way. And
Right.
again,
Hmm.
um, because I run a business, I'm an entrepreneur, all I do is try and think differently and break things and make them better. So I really feel for the teachers who got into this profession, probably, I believe, to try new things and teach different ways and explore. And one of the ways they would be exploring would be your wonderful course.
Hmm.
And they can't.
Right. And they can't innovate. They just feel that they're locked, and any initiative that they show, they're going to be knocked down. You've heard of like the tall poppy syndrome, right?
No.
Oh, so I think that comes from China. But if you look at a field of poppies, all the poppies are the same height. Every once in a while, one poppy might grow to be a little bit taller than the other poppies. But when anything comes to eat, or to destroy, that's the poppy that gets
Mm.
that gets cut down. And so
Mm.
all the poppies end up growing, the same height, and that's kind of what that fear-based mentality is like.
So, where can a teacher um, feel safe?
Well, so I'm thinking, because our
Where
education,
and how?
right? Okay, because our education system is operating from fear, we've tried to design systems that eliminate all risk. And so this leads us to build, what's known as fragile systems, and uh, and then we try to compensate by building options. But actually, what we need to do is we need to build capability. So let me just go back and define the terms. Fragile systems are systems that are built purely for efficiency. Okay, they rely on standardized step by step instructions. And I think, for people listening, if you want to go into the comments and and think about, what are examples of these standardized step by step instructions that you face, in teaching or in your job. Put some comments in, and we'll read them out. We see this all over the place, right? In schools and society. Look at airlines that have built this really efficient system as long as everything is working perfectly. But
Mhm.
you get a drop of rain in Atlanta, and it causes flight delays and cancellations all across the country.
Mhm.
And we see it in schools where we have rules about when this occurs, you have to handle it this way. The rules have to be followed. We assign work or we give tests to every student, even if some of them don't yet have the concept. We give work to students, even if people are, some of the kids are beyond those concepts, but no, 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 here's the homework. You have to do this because everybody's going to do this. And so, when we look at those systems and they start to break down, then we move into the knee jerk way to fix that fragility is to come up with exceptions and backups. So we fix fragility by building what's called robust systems, okay? Exceptions of what to do in each case. But attempting to solve for fragile systems by making them robust often just makes things really brittle. A robust system just builds in redundancy and adds options for instructions, but when a mistake happens, a robust system just creates additional remedies or creates another backup rule. And then
Mhm.
those redundancies and those exceptions and those rules for exceptions end up making the system unwieldy. And eventually, when that system breaks, it just crashes.
So can I ask you a question? I really don't know the answer to this. We haven't talked about this. Um, when did you first hear about this fear from your clients about posting a testimonial? Was it 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Um, well, so I've been involved in education since around 2002, 2003.
Hmm.
And I just, and it's always been the case. You do something, and then you talk to the teachers involved, and some sometimes, like they'll a teacher will be able to go to like a conference and talk at a conference, but for the most part, for a teacher to give a testimonial, it's I look at the like kind of a matrix of a win lose matrix. Let's say that they want to do a testimonial, but they feel that they have to go to the principal or they have to go to somebody, to get approval for it. Okay.
Hmm.
There's a really small chance there's a chance that the principal is going to say, fine, go ahead with this. Okay. But there's also the chance that the principal is going to come back and say, well, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be doing that, and they get punished just for bringing it up. Whereas if they don't bring it up at all and they say, no, I can't do it, it's like there's no risk at all of being punished. And so you look at the reward. There's a small, very tiny positive reward for not giving a testimonial because you're not going to be punished. There's a reward of feeling that you've done something good if you do a testimonial, but there could be a huge negative if you bring it up and or you do it and somebody takes exception to it. So it's just we've set up the system to really penalize people who do the testimonials.
So, I mean, my hope was to essentially dispel any thoughts that this was, again, doesn't matter what side you fall on, this was a Trump administration thing, that this has been going on for a while around multiple administrations. Is there anything, Mitch, that you can do to help them feel better, dispel the rumor, go have the conversation? And we can, you know, kind of make this more global in
Right.
that
Hmm.
how can a teacher, a principal, superintendent, whoever is above them, how what are the tools they need to feel more comfortable to go talk to somebody?
Well, I think from the let's start say with the superintendent and principal. When they have control over the system. And I'm sure that nobody who's running a district, nobody who's running a school wants their school to be fear based from the students on up through the teachers on up through administration. You want a school to have a learning culture, right? And so you can choose to build a system that's what we might call anti-fragile. An anti-fragile system is where you build capabilities, you don't build rules, and you encourage responsibility. And so you leave the decision making on many of the situations that occur at the level that encounters them. And in order to make sure those come out right, is you have a culture of everybody understands what they're trying to do, and we're trying to have the kids learn, you know, 10 months worth of knowledge in 9 months. That's the goal, right? Or
Mhm.
11 months worth of knowledge in 9 months. And so you give them the skills. You give the teachers the skills to be able to do that. You give them the resources to do that, and then you trust them, and get and put in some feedback loops so that the teachers can understand how they're doing. You can get some feedback so you can provide the teachers with extra support if they need it, and the teachers have the feedback loops with the kids so the kids know what they're doing. And that's really, those types of systems are what's really covered in the resilient course, which starts in April, and that's the QR code there. So I'll start with them, and I'll just leave that open to you. As I was saying that, what were you thinking?
Uh, WWMD. What would Mitch do? I'm kind of sitting here thinking we're having this conversation, and um, you know, what would you do if you were a teacher? WWJD, not the other J,
Right.
this one.
Okay.
What would I do if I was in this position?
Okay. So I'm going to change that a little bit. Like, let's talk first. If you were in the position of being an administrator, because I was talking about the administrators first.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll transition to, if you're a teacher and you're in this position, but as an administrator, setting up a system, to have the goal of setting up, anti-fragile or resilient systems, rather than these systems that are designed for everybody to be in lockstep, which can really only operate from a hierarchical or fear-based model.
Yeah. It's a tough question for me because having run two businesses and now
You
running my
ran
third.
your businesses, fear-based businesses. That's how you ran them.
In fact, I ran them probably to my detriment, especially in the second one. There was not enough fear. To tell you the
Mhm.
truth, I think I allowed people to make too many decisions, and the wires were getting crossed and there wasn't enough leadership. And I do believe one of the reasons this third business is more successful is because I am leading and setting the tone and have the vision, but I'm also letting people do what they do best. And so um,
And
I
letting
would,
them learn from what I call the law of natural consequences. You let for those types of, you let them make mistakes that aren't going to threaten the whole organization, but you let them make mistakes because they will learn. Our natural tendency is, when we make a mistake, we want to make it good, so we'll put in the extra effort to make up for it when we make a mistake and it has a negative result.
I guess the one thing I would say is I don't let them make mistakes. I make mistakes with them.
Okay.
And we actually we had a huge, well, not huge. We made a mistake 2 weeks ago when we rolled out our community.
Hmm.
And I could have listened to my coach and his suggestions, but I really thought I had it down and I knew what I was doing. And we rolled out this community and we had literally zero signups, zero. And it wasn't the marketing, it wasn't the name, it wasn't the messaging, it wasn't the fact that communities don't work, it wasn't the fact that we don't have people around us. It was um, actually, I think, the tool that we were using. And it was just too hard for people to sign up. So we switched the tool and we now have 65 members, 65 really
Wow.
strong members, not,
Mhm.
not, my mom and my sister, really great people. And that was a mistake that we all felt and learned from together, and also enjoyed the early success now that we've had by making an adjustment. So really tough for me to answer that question of operating from a fear-based uh, style, because it's so not my style.
It's not you, right? But it is what systems tend to do,
Yeah.
and it takes a certain amount of leadership to be able to understand that you are going to make mistakes, and to also know that when you make a mistake, it ends up making the system that much stronger because you learn how to think through when other things happen,
Mm,
and so everybody gets a much better understanding of what to do next time. The next time something goes wrong, because it
totally.
inevitably will. In any system, things are going to go wrong.
I mean, again, this is from the entrepreneurial standpoint.
Right.
That's what we want. You want to break it to make it better.
Well,
Um,
we don't want to break schools to make them better. That's for sure.
we,
No, because the kids are already there. You break the school, we can't have that, you know. But you can do things. You can do tiny experiments. Okay, you can, and that's also part of this course is how do you then come up with the things to do that aren't going to have major negative consequences, but are going to give you the information to allow you to make an even better decision on your next step.
yeah.
And so it wasn't me who coined the phrase, um, but I call those tiny experiments, or probes, kind of like the scientific method. Is like you're figuring out, okay, I could do these different things. None of these things are going to have a tremendously negative effect, but some of them will work, some of them may not work, but they're going to give us this some information back, and we can use that information in order to come up with the next thing that we do.
I think the honestly one of the most important parts is that you have all these testimonials, and that you are having this tremendous success with the people you work with.
Hmm.
They are doing what they can quietly to learn to be resilient. But unfortunately, at this point, they can't do it publicly.
Well, they can't acknowledge it publicly, but
Yeah.
what they can do for themselves, and this has nothing to do with recommending me or not recommending me, but what they can do for themselves to put themselves more at ease, to be able to do the things that they know are right in their classroom, is to understand that their reactions of I can't do this, or I feel fear, or I'm afraid of this, that those are survival reactions, that their brain is being flooded by hormones, and that their brain will naturally come up with rationalizations about why they shouldn't do those. And if they
Mm.
can understand that that's just a survival, or what I would call a limbic reaction, they can say, oh, that's just my limbic brain. They can quiet that. They can take 30 seconds or 60 seconds to let the fear hormones flush out of their brains, and they can become more resourceful, and then they could go like internal, like, so what do I really want to happen from here, or what could I do? I know I have to do this, but how could I make it fun for myself, or how could I make it fun for the kids? And taking those steps of, like, naming it, like, okay, this is just my survival brain. This is my part X. This is my saboteur. Um, Quieting it down, like maybe doing a mindfulness, maybe taking a walk, maybe listening to some music, and then asking yourself some question like, well, what if I could do this, or what would make this more fun, to open up to other possibilities. That's what individuals can do, and I think that's why the teachers, the educators come back for other courses, is that when they start doing that and they see the results in their own feelings, and their kids, and with their families, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. It was always within them, but the courses just give them the tips to be able to do the things that they were always capable of.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I have applied what you have taught me in my business, in my personal life, um, and again, while I think it's just a kind of a sad statement of the way education might be, that educators are afraid to innovate. I applaud the ones who are taking the course, potentially quietly bringing
Mhm.
this into the classroom and into their lives, and therefore making the world a better place, even if they are not able to put their name next to a testimonial.
Well, and I'll say if there is a superintendent or there's a principal who's listening to this, and you want that type of culture in your school, um, reach out to me, and I'll do whatever I can. That's my mission. Okay, my mission is for a critical mass of people to be able to think this way, and whatever I can do to help you with your district or your school or your classroom, just let me know and maybe consider taking one of the courses.
Yeah, they we all would be better if they did. And this is um, a really important conversation. And again, a very, very, very natural conversation because this came out of I was walking down Connecticut Avenue in Northwest DC, and you were reading this amazing testimonial to me. And I just said, why?
Right. Now, there's an interesting comment from LinkedIn about if you have a good idea, there's not enough smart investment in education. Um, let me know if you know any. Let me know, please. And there are companies that there are people who invest in education. There's organizations that invest in education for the purpose of a return, and there's organizations that invest in education just for the purpose of improving education, and they're not looking for a financial return. They do want to know that you have a way of measuring what you're doing and the impact that you're having. um, and you can I guess probably the easiest thing is just to reach out to me on my website, and I do know some people. But I'll also say that right now, anybody who's looking to invest to make money isn't making those investments in education, in the U.S. anyhow, because the total dollars in the education system is decreasing. It's not
Yeah.
increasing. So it's really hard to make money in a down market. They're looking at other markets. But there are some who are looking for really long-term returns, and just reach out to me on my website. And you're right. And those people don't invite in pre-seed. If you are pre-seed, then you have to figure out or find people who can help you with friends and family. Unfortunately, but that's pre-seed. That's it. Friends, friends and family, um, and local people who could possibly support you.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yep.
That person could also, what I believe, of course, could join our group that
Oh, yes.
you
Right.
need to be a part of as well. It's called the Entourage. It's our community that we started. And my belief would be to get traction in your education business and flip the script on an investor and make them come to you because you then are showing them how everything works. So I'm going to add in um, this. Can I comment?
I think you can comment if you go to the chat.
I'm in the chat,
Oops.
Rich.
And now something just now it just came off.
Oh,
But anyhow, if people can reach me through mindshiftingwithmitch.com, there's a way to contact me, and if you contact me, I'll get back to you. If you contact me and ask for Josh's information, um, I'll ask Josh for $2, and then I'll send him the recommendation.
better than 700.
Better than 700, right? My prices just came down.
Yeah. It's an
Okay.
important conversation, and hopefully people feel maybe they won't be able to put their name next to a testimonial, but they'll understand that they're not alone in feeling that way. So hopefully that makes people feel a little bit better about the situation they might find themselves in.
Anyhow, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for your comments. I think we may have been. I hope people who are watching on LinkedIn didn't get disconnected. And next week we're actually going to be talking to a couple people who have been through the courses, and
Nice.
they're going to be talking about how. Um, what's changed in their teaching, what's changed with their kids, what they're doing, both as a result of learning about mind shifting and their impact. Because those of us who teach the mind shifting classes, we learn as much from the educators as they learn from us.
Wonderful.
So hope to see you all next week. Thank you all, and have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.